Hello, wrenches, and welcome back to the Wrench Turners Podcast, 10 Mil Mastery Edition. In this series, Series 3, just like the previous two, we talk about topics, challenges, and hurdles of today's mechanics with three other mechanics, such as myself, and we come up with solutions or life experiences that we share with you to help you in your day-to-day. I'm your host, Mr. Joshua Taylor, founder and CEO of WrenchTurners.online, a business providing content and digital products for service leaders and mechanics everywhere. Digital products like the Wrench Turners Wellness Survey, a product that helps service leaders diagnose the challenges facing technicians in the working environment, and the reverse interview, content to pull technicians into your store. I appreciate each and every one of you who has been watching and following and listening to the Wrench Turners podcast. It is because of you that we have rolled 2,000 listens in such a short period of time. Thank you. Thank you so much. We need to spread this positive energy as much as possibly can. So please, I humbly ask that you share the show. Share the Spotify link, share the YouTube link, share it as much as you possibly can so we can spread that positive energy to as many mechanics as we possibly can. Tucking in today's show, Series 3, my guests are Stephan Dos Santos, Richard Mueller, and Marshall Sheldon. In today's episode 1 of Series 3, Stephan asks us how he could be a more effective leader. Well, Stephan is a shop foreman, so the four of us, round table style, talk about the traits or skills that make a more effective leader on the shop floor. So if you happen to be a technician looking to get promoted to shop foreman, or are recently promoted to a shop foreman, or even are actively in there looking to grow your skills as a shop foreman, this episode's for you. So let's get into it.
I guess my question is going to be, just because I'm new in this role, is how to be an effective leader. And I guess where I want to segue it is, my mentality has always been to kind of be in the trenches with everyone else. But in talking to a guy that runs a landscaping business, he said that, if you do that, then everyone sees you as their equal, and they're never really going to take you for the authoritative figure that you kind of have to be in that situation. So, I'm trying to build, I guess, a different relationship, because a lot of the guys that I work with, I've worked with over 5-10 years now. And I think that transition might not be the easiest, to go from one of the regular techs to now being the shop foreman. So I'm trying to look at it as a different approach and be a little bit nicer, be a little bit more calm, but sometimes the message doesn't get through, and it's been a little bit of a challenge. And with employee retention kind of being the number one focus right now because of our labor shortage that we're all feeling, there's been some difficulties. So, I'm reaching out to see what I can do differently and what I can do a little bit better, and maybe things that I have to completely stop doing. So
I think that's a great question, because it really jumps in. It's like, yesterday or 2 days ago, I posted that interview with Zach Perkle. He's got a team of 38 technicians at a Honda store, and it's a store that he grew up in, right? He spent the last 20 years or so, I can't remember what the exact number is, but he spent the last 20 years or so in that shop, through the shop, got his master tech, and is now leading that at fixed ops director level. 38 techs doing $1 million a month through service, that's not a small wagon, right? That's a bloody freight train trying to move all the processes and policies and stuff going through. And a lot of the techs that are still there are techs that were there when he started. So learning how to separate, long-standing friendships and turning it into a leadership role is a really hard thing to do, that he has, I think, from the outside, he's learned how to do successfully. So I have a couple ideas, but I want to hear from Marshall and Richard first before I jump in. Marshall, what do you think? What do you think that you can do, and what do you think that Stephan can do to be better at being a leader?
Well, I know that, so you're working with people that you've worked with already for years, and now you are in a position of leadership where you may have to reprimand them and things like that. I think for sure you might have to dial back some of the after hours personal stuff, where you might have went to the skate park or went and had a beer with some of the technicians, and you need to make a very clear line between us at work and us after work, because when we're here to make money and handle our business. Afterwards, like if I ask you to do something, you're upset with me, as soon as we walk out of this door, we need to be able to shut that off and go have a beer and forget all about it. That's gonna be difficult, but it can be done. Obviously, Zach is a beast. We used to run into that a lot in the military, where you're growing up with these people, you're growing up with them as men and women, and then you're always getting promoted. Everybody gets promoted eventually, and then some of those people that they have been coming up with are now under their charge. So it's not like a situation that nobody is, that's new to the world. So it's like I know you're going to be able to work through it, but for sure I would say separate your personal life with your work life, and set a clear boundary with your other people that you're working with, so that way, one, you don't destroy the friendships that you've built over years, and two, you're able to do your job as the foreman, because I think you're fitting to find out real quick who respects you and who doesn't, because the people that don't respect you, they are going to make it pretty obvious real quick when you're asking them to do something, and they're trying to kick back and not allow you to have that authority.
I think that's a key right there, the boundary setting. I had challenges with that in my first, I won't necessarily even leadership role. I think when I left Chrysler and I went to Benz as tower slash warranty admin, I wasn't in a leadership role, but I had to be able to influence what was going on in 25 techs in a shop. There was 2 of us in tower. Yes, we had an electronic DMS and electronic dispatching, and the service manager at the time was hardcore, like super high IQ, very low EQ, but super high EQ, knew how to logic everything, was really great at coordinating the dispatching, setting up profiles so that techs were getting the right jobs and things like that. But it was up to us in tower to make sure that actually occurred through the day, and being able to do the shell game with the cars as they came in. So leading technicians, still kind of being fresh tech, because I was still doing part-time work at my buddy's shop, so I was still in it, and trying to figure out how to not play favoritism when handing out jobs, and how to communicate and understand when a tech was having challenges in their day from a different perspective, when it's not you turning the wrench anymore, and it's you've got a technician in front of you that's having a challenge, whether it's challenge diagnosing a car, challenge repairing a car, challenge with another tech in the shop, whether it's personal, professional, whatever the case may be. That setting a boundary between personal and professional in the shop is really hard when you spend, I can only imagine it can be very difficult to separate those two. So setting a boundary, personal, professional boundary, whether it's after the 5 o'clock issue, or it's during the day, I think that's super key. That's super key. Richard, what would you say? What's maybe one piece of advice that you would give Stephan about over the years that you've learned to be a more effective leader yourself?
I'll touch on what Marshall had mentioned the last time we were in front of the camera, where it was a leadership question, and how most of the time when shop foremans are promoted from the technician pool, It's they're always the tech that, you know, has the ear of the shop. Technicians already technicians are already coming to you to ask questions and getting answers and everything else like that. And then it's just basically a formality at that point. Um, but from a leadership role, you have to, just like what Marshall said, you have to distance yourself. Your shop foreman isn't. They don't label it really as a management position where I'm at, but you have to act like a manager, and you have to separate that side of it, right? Like you have to be able to turn it off. You have to be able to realize that when a technician comes to you and they're having an off day, what you need to do. There's a section of empathy as well as your skill quotient that you have to go along with, right? You can't just turn around and be a complete ass to these guys. You did come up with them, so. But at the end of the day, it's really just about separating. It's you have to make sure that they know the powers that be put you in the position that you're in because they saw something, right? The technicians in the shop already saw it. They already knew what was happening and most techs will already know, like, yep, that one's gonna be shop foreman, that one's gonna be the shit disturber, that one's gonna be this one's gonna be that. Most guys in the shop know where they're gonna be. Excuse me. But yeah, you're just basically stepping. If you like me, you're already stepping into that role, right? You're already proving your leadership skills. And then you just have to polish and refine them. But that for me is always the biggest thing. And don't overshare. You sit down with your service manager, you sit down with management, they discuss habits of technicians, they discuss issues with technicians, they discuss everything that's happening on your shop floor. Do not overshare. You need to make sure there's a definite line where you know what you can share with the guys, because they're all going to gossip. They're all going to find out what's going on, and they'll all know what's going on. But they don't know everything. They don't know. A lot of guys will see a massive problem, but they don't see all the cogs in the machine running in the background, and you will see that as a shop foreman. You will know what's going on in the background. The shop doesn't need to know a bunch of that. They don't need to know that. They need to know how to fix the car that's in their bay. They need to learn how to mind their bay. That's the mantra, is always like, mind your bay. Don't worry about what's going on around you. If there's an issue, that's on you to fix it. So yeah, don't overshare and build those boundaries.
I think that's great. I actually made a note here where I would divert kind of the two boundaries, and how getting to know you and how you are communicating there, it'd be closer to learn to be firm from your standpoint, how to be able to separate the two, professional from personal. But when you communicate, you aren't their friend anymore, which means you now have to communicate in a firm manner. It's like you're asking, but you're not asking. It's like, can you take out the trash? And you're not asking, right? Yeah. It's that, I've said it before. And it's not disrespectful, because it's how to effectively lead technicians. For the most part, you have to treat them like children, but you can't talk to them like they're children, but you have to talk to them like they're children, right? It's asking without asking, them understanding that you're not really asking. You're telling them to do something, but you're asking them to do something. Learning that they know when you're fucking around and when you're not. Because you have to be able to have personal opinion. You have to be able to be a little bit light, but not always light. Like Richard said, don't overshare. You know when you can share, and you know when you can't share, and you have to hold to that boundary. You can't share this, or you can't share that. I think that's a really key. I've had shop foremen that shared way too much, I know in the past, in roles that I've been, I've probably shared too much. I am still learning that boundary because I have difficulty making friends. I have difficulty building relationships. It takes a lot for me to trust, like truly trust. So I think that's a common challenge amongst many. And I believe that personally, I thought that oversharing meant I was building relationships. It's really not. It's more detrimental than much other things that you can do by oversharing. What are the things that you are actively doing, Stephan, that you are either trying to use as a learning tool to be a more effective leader, or what are you actively doing from said learning?
I think right now I'm trying to work on facial expression and tone of voice in my delivery, because I know that I can come off a little bit harsher than I need to, and that's been tough. I mean, being a tech has always been kind of a dog eat dog world, so you kind of come into work with this shield up, ready to fight, and now you don't need to do that, and it's hard to turn that off after as many years as I've been doing it. And just being more of a allow a person to actually make the mistake, so that you can give them a chance to learn from it, as opposed to telling them what to do so that they never make a mistake, period, and avoid any and all issues. As a service leader, you kind of want to do that because you don't want to have anything go south. However, calm seas have never made a skilled sailor, so it's like you have to let them go through it and say, hey, listen, had you done it this way, you would have avoided this, but now you've seen a different way to do it, and you've constructed your own approach to it. You kind of have to let them, give them enough rope not to hang themselves, but at least to kind of work through some of their own problems. So it's tough to not be so inclusive into their work. Let them actually figure it out on their own or get to that brick wall, and then you're just there to put them over. You're not there to build the wall for them. Put them over, get them on their way, and that's it. So it's always going to be a challenge for me, because I do like to help people, and people that know me, it takes a few months to get through my tough exterior, and then I'm actually a really nice person. And some people don't believe it, but it is what it is. So I'm just trying to change my approach head on, as opposed to waiting 3-4 months for people to actually warm up. Try to do it within a short period of time.
Awesome. And I think that's key. I think the learning aspect of it is as important as anything else, and knowing you need to learn. Do you have a specific moment? I'm going to ask all three of you this, just kind of a quick answer. Do you have a specific moment when you realize that you need to go outside of your circumstance and actively read or learn or take a course or whatever? Is there a specific moment that you can go, that's the moment when I knew I needed to learn more, that's nothing to do with what I'm doing on the job?
Yeah, I had someone just kind of break down as I was asking them to do something, and they really started to feel emotional, and I had to kind of stop there, and I'm like, whoa, like, this is above work now. Like, why is the individual getting emotional? And I had to kind of take the hat off, and I just went to him as a human being and said, hey man, like what's going on? This isn't you. And he kind of had to dive in a little bit deeper, and my approach to him was not going to ever work in that direction. So I've changed my approach now, but I've had to do a little bit of side reading and say, hey, like, how do you deal with a person who doesn't learn this way or doesn't learn that way? So because we all have different managerial styles, consequently, there's also a bunch of different learning styles, and you got to try to mesh them all together. And I think that takes a lot of time. So, one person, one interaction at a time. And, I'll get there eventually. I don't think anyone's a rock star their first year. So, I'm open to learning, right? So it's just an ongoing kind of approach, that being that hard-nosed guy is not always going to get you what you want.
Awesome. Richard, do you have that? Do you remember that specific moment?
Yeah, that it would have been like at the first foreman gig that I started at with Ford, and that's where it was like a buddy of mine. We built a business together, and we were close friends, but he said something to me at one point, and I just kind of turned to him and I looked at him. I was like, when I'm like, I hope you don't have that attitude when we're at work. And he's like, oh yeah, sure, of course. And I was like, no, that like it was, what did he say? You're just a company man. That's what one of the comments was to me. And we were just shooting the shit outside of work, and I just looked at him and I was like what the hell is that supposed to mean? And he defined it for me, and I was like, okay, well, that's, and then in I had to seriously sit down and like think about how going forward my relationship would be with him at the shop, right? So um, yeah, that was a difficult hurdle, but I managed it at the end of the day. It was manageable, and yeah, welcome to leadership, Stephan, with the learning how to deal with multiple personalities across the entire shop. That's the part of being a good shop foreman, is knowing how to manage your guys, right? So
Awesome. Yeah, learning, having that pivotal. Hopefully, the multiple personalities isn't one person. So
no.
that's a whole different thing, and that is seeking professional help. Marshall, what was your moment? Oh, Marshall's on mute. Why is Marshall on mute?
Is that better? There we go.
Yep. I even have the sign for it in the back.
I didn't even mute it, so I don't know how I got there. But anywho, I think with each apprentice that I get, my training styles change, because each person is it Stephan or
Stephan's good, yeah.
But okay, cool. So I just want to make sure I'm saying it right. But to Stephan's point, each person is different. So each time I get an apprentice, they react differently to all kinds of things. And I know, Josh, you and I have had conversations about this outside, where I was struggling with an apprentice, which it happens because everybody learns differently, everybody's motivated differently. And so as all of us progress in our leadership abilities, we have to learn different skill sets to match those people so that we can lead them. And I think each time I get an apprentice, it's an all new learning adventure. And then I'm learning, I go out of my way to learn something. Like, for example, how do you lead someone that isn't motivated by money, isn't motivated by feeling like they are making a difference in the world, or I've had guys that are motivated by training, so they want to do whatever they have to do to get to the next training point. You've got the people, like I said, that are motivated to get to the next raise or the overtime. You've got people that are motivated purely by you letting them know that they are making a difference, right? So what in my field, we work on commercial trucks, and just letting them know, like, hey, great job on that repair. Just think about how much of a difference that truck gets to go out there and deliver all of the food to the grocery stores. Good for you. Some people need different, each person is different, and they are motivated differently because of their whys, So once we can, then you go back and you do the research on how can I help motivate someone that's like that. Then you add that to your skill set, and then you might get another person. I feel like I've run into, those are the main ones that I run into: the training, the money, and making a difference. Those seem to be the main ones that I run into. So just adding little tools so that I can help motivate those people.
I think just learning that there are, at least in your specific area, and I'm not sure whether it's industry or maybe location or brand focus, but just knowing that you have, for the most part, you only have those three categories, and learning what motivates those folks to do better, to succeed, to empower themselves, to be better as individuals, knowing that those three categories, and then, like you said, deep diving on the research to understand better how to help them is awesome.
Yeah.
I think personally, learning to become a more effective leader for me has been entirely driven by learning how to deal with emotion. My pivotal moment, I remember it very clearly. Parts manager at the collision store just absolutely tearing a strip off me one way or the other. Fault or no fault, wherever the fault is, doesn't matter. Just having someone, being a GM of a store, having the parts manager feel that it's okay and acceptable to scream, shout, holler, throw things in the middle of the shop floor in front of all the techs, putting yourself in a circumstance where you as a leader, and it was me in that circumstance, because of my inadequacy at the time, whatever it happened to be, specifically I believe it to be emotional intelligence, me allowing my team and letting them down in that sense, thinking that it's okay, that's acceptable, that it's acceptable to do that. And it's a manager nonetheless, not just a team player. That for me was my pivotal moment, and that's driven me to consume as much as I possibly can between articles and listening to TED Talks and listening and reading books and Audible, and just consuming as much as I possibly can on learning how to absorb emotion from other people and learning how to dissect that objectively so that I can respond in kind. And, there's a phrase that's been popping around, don't be nice, be kind. Because not everybody deserves nice. And in all actuality, when you're nice, you're probably be more detrimental to your own self and as detrimental to the person you're speaking to than just being kind. Because sometimes you got to walk away, right? Sometimes you got to walk away from an individual, and sometimes you got to, show them the door, right? Down the road motors exists for a reason. So they may not be the right team fit. You might not fit the team. And learning when that is the case as a leader, you can be a more effective leader. It's like if you've got a group of 20 techs in a shop and 19 of them fish and you don't, the likelihood that you're a good fit for that shop is remote. And those are where those interview questions, really come into play. Finding out whether you're a leader interviewing to go into a shop or a technician going to a shop, you can't be an effective leader in a shop full of fishermen if you don't fish. Like the mindset's different, the after hours stuff is different, even when you separate personal and professional. If you don't have anything in common at all with the people around you, it's going to be awfully hard to get through a day and enjoy it.
Oh no! That's the end of today's episode, Wrenches! Oh well, there'll be another one coming next week. Don't you worry, because we cut this one large. Boys got really into it. Had a great time filming. It was a great time. Gentlemen, thank you. Thank you again for another great episode. Great content. Hopefully somebody somewhere gets exactly what they need out of it to be more positive, to be a more effective leader, to be a more effective human, and above all, be more happy and productive on the shop floor. Subscribe to the Wrenchers podcast on your streaming service of choice, including YouTube. Don't forget, ladies and gentlemen, if you're not watching, you are missing out. All of these videos now are coming out on YouTube, as well as Spotify and your favorite streaming service of choice. If you have any questions about the show, about the episodes, the content, or the business itself, please reach out to me, leader@justworkhard.com. Thank you very much for listening again. Hope to hear you back here next week. And remember, negative pushes, positive pulls, and always clean your toys before you put them away.